So, welcome to Lecture 3 on the Doctrine of Evil. In between Lectures 2 and 3, I had to apply some oxygen. I have oxygen right behind me. And the things that they have to do to me and the things that I have to experience sometimes mess me up. I apologize for the hat. Normally I don't wear one. I always found it fascinating that bald guys like Hulk Hogan wearing a do-rag as if we think we're tricking you. As if you're thinking, no. Underneath that hat, he must have just a glorious, massive head of hair. Nope. So when I wear a hat, I usually wear a do-rag, but you may see it depending on what they do to me. I'll admit something to you because it's an issue of virtue and vice. I don't like you guys seeing me with a cane. I have a number of them that help me walk, but I don't like you seeing me with it. Now, there are people who struggle through, massive things much worse than I do. So the irony or the arrogance that goes along with that is sad. You know, there's a vanity. I don't want you to see me with it. I want you to think I'm strong and tough. When clearly, as you have learned, perhaps even this week, I'm not invincible or perfect or as tough as I want to be. See, here's the lesson that we get from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you were following along, I'm on the 5th page of our notes, but it's slide number 19. And I was talking to you about the evil, but I want to insert this here. It's the perfect time to do it. The moment that God said in Genesis 2:17, the day that you eat of this, you will surely die. Satan shows up and tempts Adam and Eve, does so in a way that he always does, which is he says that's what God said, but that's not what God meant. And Eve takes of it. Adam, who's with her, sees the change in her, and he chooses to eat it as well. But they didn't die. It's clear in Genesis 2:17, God says, the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. But they didn't die. I'll submit this to you. They did die. God kicks them out of the garden. You know, how did you know you were naked? But they died immediately in the spirit. That's why they hid from him. They hid from him because the relationship between them and God was now broken. They would die eventually in the soul. Your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. And they would die ultimately in the body. And what Jesus Christ does in our salvation is that Jesus Christ flips the curse. He reverses the curse. So that the moment you say, I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, you are saved immediately in the Spirit. At that moment, if you were to die, God forbid, but if you were to die at that moment, you are in heaven immediately. You didn't have to be baptized, didn't have to join church. You are saved immediately in the Spirit. You are saved ultimately in the body. You're saved progressively in your soul. How is that? Well, I talked about your salvation, but in your soul it's called sanctification. You're growing more and more like Jesus. Whereas when Adam and Eve fell, now everything that came into the earth, the curse, Adam, the pain of labor, sweat of labor, Eve, the pain of childbirth. Now everything was going to be a fight. The entire world was affected by the fall. That's where natural evil comes from. We were now at war with each other. Vengeance, greed, envy, gluttony, the 7 deadly sins. But as you're saved, your mind and your will and your emotions are going to be more and more like Christ. And you are saved progressively. And your soul, and you are saved ultimately in your body. The moment you die, your spirit goes to Christ. You are a spirit. You have a soul. You live in a body. But when the rapture takes place, you will be glorified. Salvation, sanctification, glorification. So what Jesus did was reverse that curse. If you'll notice under 19, the question I ask is, okay, how can somebody want evil when there's no evil to want? But just the word want, the word choice implies evil. If I choose this morning to eat bacon, it has an adverse effect on my body. But if I choose to eat Snickers bars, that would be even more adverse. If I choose to eat something that fuels me or something that drains me, every choice has a consequence. Every consequence is either good, bad, or better. Satan won't knock on your door and go, "Hi, let's smoke crack." Most of your choices are going to be between the good and the better and the best. Notice, a good creature with the good power to free will. Adam and Eve chose the finite will of the creature, not the infinite will of the Creator. Ultimately, their sin was they wanted what they wanted. That's why they took of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They ate of it. So let's talk about this, because there's so many people who want to scream, yell, and fight over the fact that man has free will. Man has to have free will. Free will is what separates us from instinct. Animals act by behavioral modification and by instinct. Humans think. Let me define it this way. Animals have emotions, but those emotions are based on reward or punishment. But they don't think. Not the way that humans think. I can make you sing, but I can't make you worship. I can make you marry me with a gun, but I can't make you love me. If God wanted people that were going to follow him out of their desire, they have to have a desire. So let's talk about the tree. God created the tree. God made the choice which would bring about evil, gradation, clearly. God made it possible. And what could he have done differently? He gave them dominion over everything. He told them the consequence of the choice. So I've given you a couple options. One, he could have not created the tree. But then they would have never chosen to follow him. They would have just followed him like robots. He could have not told them about it. He could have created it in this massive garden and not told them. He could have built it, told them about it, but not given them access to it, put a fence around it. But he gave them the choice, told them the consequence, and left them to their own device. He wanted free creatures. Like I said, I can make you marry me, I guess. I mean, if I had a gun. But I can't make you love me. If you look on the last slide that we're going to talk about, who caused Lucifer to sin? Number 21. Nobody else caused him to do it. Lucifer was his own self-cause. If somebody else would have caused him to do it, then he wouldn't be responsible. Creatures that don't have a choice don't have accountability. Please notice, it can't be caused by another, or else they, the one who caused it, would be the responsible one. Neither can it be uncaused, since every event has a cause. Thus it has to be self-caused. Nobody made Lucifer. Isaiah 14 lists 5 times that he says, I will. He wanted, as the son of the morning star, he wanted to sit on that throne. I will ascend to on high. I will be worshipped. That's where evil comes from. He couldn't make Adam and Eve do it. He could suggest. He could lie. He could distort. He could corrupt. That's exactly what he did. So, the very first lecture I told you a word. The second lecture I told you a word. I'm going to give you a phrase this time. Lecture 3, he reversed the curse. Reverse the curse. I'm going to give you all a break a little bit. I'll give you the last 2 lectures tomorrow. But these 3 will suffice. And y'all continue to pray for me. I continue to pray for you. I'll be better and I'll be back. Reverse the curse. Lecture 3.